Cold rain struck Eleanor Bennett's face as she stood at the end of her own driveway. A small suitcase rested beside her feet. She wore only a navy blue blouse, dark pants, and the thin coat her daughter-in-law had pushed into her hands. Behind her, the warm lights of the house glowed through the windows. The Thanksgiving table was still covered with food Eleanor had spent 2 days preparing. Through the dining room window, she could see her family eating dessert as if nothing had happened. Her son, Aaron, stood inside the front entrance. For one brief moment, Eleanor believed he might open the door and apologize. Instead, he looked directly at her and turned the lock. "You don't live here anymore," he said through the glass. Eleanor did not move. 68 years of life had taught her how to survive loss, but nothing had prepared her for this. Her husband, Robert, had died 2 years earlier. Eleanor had believed losing him was the deepest pain she would ever feel. She had been wrong. The betrayal of her only son was different. Robert's death had left an empty space in her life. Aaron's betrayal had filled that space with shame. Only 20 minutes earlier, everyone had been sitting around the dining table. The turkey was warm. Candles burned between bowls of vegetables, potatoes, and cranberry sauce. Eleanor had worn her pearl necklace because Robert had given it to her on their 30th anniversary. Aaron had raised his glass and said he had an important family announcement. Eleanor expected him to announce a promotion or a holiday trip. Instead, Vanessa placed a thick folder beside Eleanor's plate. Aaron announced that Eleanor had transferred the house and her company shares to him. He said she had also given him control of her bank accounts. According to Aaron, his mother had agreed to move into an assisted living residence after Thanksgiving. Eleanor stared at him. She believed she had misunderstood. "This is my home," she said quietly. Vanessa opened the folder and displayed several pages. Eleanor's signature appeared at the bottom of each one. "You signed everything 6 weeks ago," Vanessa said. "We explained it to you." Eleanor remembered signing tax forms and insurance updates. Vanessa had brought the documents to her office near closing time. She had rushed Eleanor, saying the papers needed to reach the accountant that evening. But Eleanor had never agreed to give away her home. Aaron looked around the table before speaking again. His voice became soft and careful, as if he were talking to a frightened child. "Mom, this is exactly why we made the decision. You don't remember what you signed." Several relatives lowered their eyes. No one defended her. Eleanor's granddaughter, Lily, sat across from her. The 19-year-old looked pale and frightened. She tried to speak, but Vanessa silenced her with a warning glance. Aaron said Eleanor had become forgetful since Robert's death. He claimed she was making dangerous financial decisions and could no longer run Bennett Family Foods. Eleanor had built that company with Robert from nothing. They had started in a rented kitchen, delivering prepared meals in an old van. The business now employed more than 70 people. Aaron had worked there for 12 years, but Eleanor still owned most of it. Vanessa pushed the folder closer to her. "It is already done," she said. "Fighting us will only embarrass you." Eleanor looked at Aaron and waited for him to show some regret. Instead, he reached into his pocket and held out his hand. "We need the company keys and your phone." When Eleanor refused, Aaron took the phone from the table. Vanessa walked upstairs and returned with a suitcase she had packed before dinner. That detail hurt Eleanor most. This had not been a sudden argument. They had planned every moment. Aaron placed an old bank card on top of the suitcase. He said they had booked her a room at a nearby motel for one night. A representative from an assisted living residence would collect her the next morning. "You will be more comfortable there," he said. Eleanor rose slowly. Her legs felt weak, but her voice remained steady. "If this house truly belongs to you, show me the recorded deed." Vanessa smiled. "Our attorney has everything." Aaron opened the front door. Cold air entered the warm dining room. Eleanor looked at every person around the table. Some appeared ashamed. Others avoided her eyes. Nobody stood up. As Eleanor walked past Lily, her granddaughter suddenly hugged her. Vanessa ordered Lily to sit down, but the young woman held Eleanor for another second. Eleanor felt Lily's hand slide something into the pocket of her coat. Outside, Aaron placed the suitcase on the driveway. Then he closed and locked the door. Eleanor began walking through the rain. At the edge of the property, she stopped and looked back. A security camera was mounted over the garage. Aaron had told her those cameras were disconnected during a recent system update. But a small green light continued flashing. For the first time that night, something changed in Eleanor's expression. Her sadness remained, but fear slowly gave way to thought. She walked nearly half a mile to the motel. The receptionist entered the bank card information and shook her head. The card has been declined. Eleanor tried it again. The result was the same. She had no working phone, no car keys, and no access to her money. Aaron had not only thrown her out. He had made sure she could not reach anyone. Across town, inside Eleanor's house, Vanessa raised a glass of champagne. At 4:30 tomorrow morning, the transfer will be complete, she told Aaron. By sunrise, everything will belong to us. At that exact moment, Eleanor reached into her coat pocket. Her fingers closed around a small object. Lily had given her a flash drive. Eleanor left the motel and walked to a nearby 24-hour restaurant. The Thanksgiving crowd had disappeared, and only a few tired travelers remained. A waitress named June noticed Eleanor's wet clothes and brought her coffee before she even ordered. Eleanor placed her suitcase beside the booth. When she opened it, she discovered how carefully Vanessa had planned her removal. There were 2 blouses, 1 pair of pants, nightclothes, and basic toiletries. Her medicine was missing. So were her identification papers, Robert's photographs, and the folder containing the original deed to the house. Vanessa had not packed for Eleanor's comfort. She had packed enough to make her disappear. Eleanor asked June if she could borrow a phone charger. Inside a hidden pocket of the suitcase, Eleanor found an old emergency phone. Robert had insisted that she keep it charged whenever she traveled. Eleanor had almost forgotten about it. When the phone turned on, messages began appearing. The first came from Peter Hall, the warehouse manager at Bennett Family Foods. Aaron had ordered him not to speak with Eleanor. Another message came from the company accountant, Nora Jenkins. Vanessa had requested a transfer from the company's emergency reserve fund. The amount was $480,000. Eleanor read the message twice. 6 months earlier, Aaron had asked to become the company's operations director. He said Eleanor deserved to slow down after Robert's death. Vanessa, who had experience in bookkeeping, offered to manage the financial records. Eleanor had wanted to trust them. They were family. At first, everything seemed normal. Aaron attended meetings and visited the warehouse. Vanessa organized invoices and introduced new software. Slowly, however, they began separating Eleanor from the company. Meetings were changed without telling her. Passwords stopped working. Employees were told to send questions to Aaron. Vanessa also began bringing documents to Eleanor's office. She described them as tax forms, insurance updates, and routine company papers. She always arrived near the end of the day, when Eleanor was tired. Twice, Eleanor noticed that the page numbers did not match. When she asked questions, Vanessa became offended. "You asked us to help," she had said. "You need to trust us." Aaron began speaking about Eleanor's memory. If she forgot an appointment, he told people it was becoming serious. If she corrected him, he accused her of confusion. He contacted an assisted living residence and described Eleanor as unable to care for herself. Now Eleanor understood why. They were creating a story. If Eleanor challenged the documents, Aaron would claim she had forgotten signing them. If she became angry, Vanessa would use that anger as proof that Eleanor was unstable. Eleanor removed Lily's flash drive from her coat. June allowed her to use an old laptop kept behind the counter. Several folders appeared when Eleanor connected the drive. One contained photographs of documents bearing Eleanor's signature. Another contained screenshots of messages between Aaron and Vanessa. A third folder was locked. Eleanor opened the messages first. Vanessa had told Aaron that the house would be easier to control once Eleanor was gone. Aaron asked whether they should wait until after Christmas. Vanessa refused. "Thanksgiving is perfect," she wrote. "The entire family will witness her confusion." They had invited relatives not to celebrate Eleanor but to create an audience. Another message discussed the company transfer. Vanessa planned to move the reserve money at 4:30 in the morning, when the bank's offices were closed and the employees were asleep. The money would pass through 2 accounts before reaching a private company. Eleanor searched for the company's name. It did not exist. Her sadness became anger. Aaron had not only betrayed his mother. He was risking the jobs of 70 employees. The reserve account covered payroll, supplier emergencies, and medical benefits. If the money disappeared, Bennett family foods could collapse within weeks. Eleanor opened an audio file from Lily's drive. Vanessa's voice filled the quiet booth. "The signatures are good enough. Once she is out, nobody will believe her." Aaron asked what would happen if Eleanor called her attorney. "By the time she reaches anyone, everything will already be gone," Vanessa answered. Eleanor paused the recording. She checked the time. It was 11:47 p.m. She tried calling Margaret Cole, the attorney who had worked with Eleanor and Robert for more than 20 years. The call went to voicemail. Eleanor left a short message and tried again. No answer. She called the bank's emergency number. After verifying her name, the representative told her she no longer had authority to make changes to the company account. A power of attorney document had been submitted earlier that afternoon. Eleanor's access had been removed. Back at the house, Aaron entered Eleanor's office. He opened Robert's desk and began searching the drawers. "What are you looking for?" Vanessa asked. "The original trust documents." Vanessa's expression changed. "You said there wasn't a trust." Aaron looked toward the door before answering. "I said I had never seen it." At the restaurant, Eleanor tried opening the locked folder on Lily's drive. The file requested a password. Its name consisted of one word. Sunrise. Eleanor stared at the screen. It had been Robert's private emergency word. He used it when a problem could not wait until morning. Eleanor suddenly remembered a date that only she and Robert would understand. She entered the numbers. The folder opened. The locked folder contained copies of Vanessa's private emails. Lily had found them on an old tablet her father left unlocked. One email was addressed to a document specialist. Vanessa had sent him an image of Eleanor's signature taken from an old tax form. She asked him to place it on several property and company documents. Another email contained a false medical letter. It claimed that Eleanor suffered from serious memory loss. The doctor named in the letter had never examined her. Eleanor continued reading until she found the transfer instructions. The company's money was not going into an account shared by Aaron and Vanessa. It was going into a private account controlled only by Vanessa. Aaron believed they would take the money together. Vanessa intended to take it for herself. Eleanor leaned back in the booth. Her son had betrayed her, but his wife was preparing to betray him. For a moment, Eleanor considered calling Aaron. A mother's instinct told her to warn him. She had protected him his entire life. When he failed a college course, she paid for another semester. When his first business failed, she covered his debts. When he struggled in his marriage, she gave him a position at the family company. Every time Aaron faced consequences, Eleanor rescued him. That was how he learned he could do almost anything without losing her support. Eleanor closed the laptop. Warning Aaron would not save him. It would only help him hide the evidence. She called two relatives who had attended Thanksgiving dinner. Her cousin Michael answered first. Eleanor explained that Aaron had forged the documents and blocked her bank access. Michael remained silent before finally responding. Aaron said you might call people in the middle of the night. He said you're not thinking clearly. Eleanor felt as if another door had closed in her face. Her sister-in-law answered the second call. She advised Eleanor to accept the assisted living arrangement until everything could be discussed calmly. Nobody wanted to believe that a son could do this to his mother. Believing Eleanor was confused felt easier. She looked around the restaurant. Other families were traveling home after Thanksgiving. Eleanor had no home she could enter, no working bank card, and no person willing to believe her. For the first time that night, she nearly surrendered. She imagined going to the assisted living residence the next morning. Aaron would tell everyone that she had accepted the arrangement. Vanessa would control the company. Employees would lose their jobs. The house Robert built would become a trophy for the people who betrayed her. Eleanor touched her wedding ring. Robert had always admired her strength. She could almost hear him telling her to examine the facts before reacting. She reopened the locked folder. A spreadsheet listed dozens of payments sent from Bennett Family Foods to consulting companies. Eleanor recognized none of the names. The payments had begun shortly after Vanessa joined the company. The total was more than $300,000. Eleanor forwarded the files to a secure email address. She then called Margaret again. No answer. The restaurant clock moved past midnight. Eleanor wondered whether Margaret was traveling for Thanksgiving. Without her attorney, the documents might not be enough to stop the transfer. June returned and quietly placed a plate of warm food beside her. You look like you've had a terrible night, the waitress said. Eleanor thanked her but could barely eat. Her emergency phone suddenly rang. Margaret's name appeared on the screen. Eleanor answered immediately. Margaret apologized for the delay. She had been driving through an area with poor service. As Eleanor described what happened, Margaret did not interrupt. When Eleanor mentioned the false power of attorney, Margaret asked whether Aaron had shown her the documents. Eleanor explained that Vanessa produced copies during dinner. And they physically removed you from the house? Margaret asked. Yes. Did they threaten you? They told everyone I was mentally unwell. Margaret was silent for several seconds. What time is the transfer? 4:30. I'm 40 minutes away. Eleanor asked whether they could stop it. Margaret's voice became firm. Eleanor, do you remember the protection plan we prepared? Eleanor glanced at the flash drive. I remember. I need a clear answer, Margaret said. Do you want me to activate it? Eleanor looked through the window. The rain was slowing. Somewhere beyond the dark street stood the house Robert had built, the company they had created, and the son who believed she was too weak to fight. Yes, Eleanor answered. Activate everything. She ended the call. At the same moment, Vanessa stood inside Eleanor's office holding an old photograph. It showed Robert and Eleanor opening their first business location. Vanessa tore the photograph in half and dropped it into the trash. She did not know that Margaret Cole had just opened a locked legal case containing documents that would destroy her entire plan. Margaret arrived at the restaurant shortly before 1 in the morning. She was 66, composed and known for never wasting words. She carried a locked legal case in one hand and a second phone in the other. Eleanor gave her the flash drive. Margaret examined the emails, false medical letter, and transfer instructions. Her expression remained controlled, but Eleanor could see anger in her eyes. This is more serious than we expected, Margaret said. She called Nora, the company accountant, and asked her to join a secure video meeting. Nora had already found unusual payments, but lacked permission to examine Vanessa's private accounts. Lily's files provided the missing connection. Margaret then contacted 3 board members. Bennett Family Foods was privately owned, but Robert had created a small board to protect the company. Aaron believed those members would support him. He did not know they had been questioning Vanessa's expenses for months. Peter, the warehouse manager, was told to copy every company record before Aaron could delete anything. The technology director preserved emails, login histories, and security footage. No one contacted Aaron. Margaret wanted him and Vanessa to believe they were still in control. At Eleanor's house, Aaron had changed into one of Robert's old jackets. He stood in front of the mirror, admiring himself. "This company should have been mine years ago," he said. Vanessa barely listened. She was checking the private transfer account on her phone. In a few hours, the money would move. Aaron believed it would finance their new life. Vanessa had already purchased a ticket leaving Portland the following evening. Back at the restaurant, the emergency board meeting began. Eleanor remained calm as Nora presented the records. The board members saw the false payments, forged documents, and attempted removal of Eleanor's authority. The vote was unanimous. Aaron and Vanessa were suspended immediately. Their access would not be removed until Vanessa attempted the transfer. Margaret wanted the bank to see direct proof that she intended to move the money. Lily entered the restaurant shortly after 2. She had told her parents she was staying with a friend. Her eyes filled with tears when she saw her grandmother. "I should have stopped them," she said. Eleanor hugged her. "You did stop them. You collected the truth." Lily admitted she had been watching her parents for 3 weeks. She heard Vanessa discussing the assisted living home, and became suspicious. When she found the false medical letter, she began copying files. Eleanor promised that Lily would not lose her education or future because of her parents' actions. Margaret opened the locked case. She removed several official documents and placed them before Eleanor. The audience could not yet see their titles. Margaret explained each page carefully. Eleanor listened and signed one final instruction. Margaret immediately sent certified copies to the bank, board members, county recorder, and home security company. At 4:15, Eleanor, Margaret, and Lily left the restaurant. Peter and the board chair traveled separately. A financial investigator waited nearby. Inside the house, Vanessa sat at Eleanor's desk. The transfer screen was open. Aaron placed 2 glasses and a bottle of champagne beside her. At 4:25, Vanessa entered the account information. At 4:28, she confirmed the amount. At 4:29, she pressed the final button. The screen displayed one word, processing. Aaron opened the champagne. Then the message changed. Transfer denied. Account restricted. Vanessa tried again. Her password failed. Aaron's company phone suddenly locked. His email disappeared. The smart television returned to its welcome screen. The house light switched off for 3 seconds before turning on again. "What did you do?" Aaron demanded. Vanessa stared at the computer. "Nothing. Someone removed us." The front gate opened. Headlights moved slowly up the driveway. Aaron looked through the window and saw a black car stop near the front door. Eleanor stepped out wearing the same navy blue blouse and pearl necklace she had worn at dinner. She was no longer carrying the suitcase. Margaret exited beside her holding the locked legal case. The board chair and financial investigator followed. Aaron's face lost all color. Vanessa whispered that Eleanor could not legally enter. Before Aaron could respond, his mother used a newly activated security code. The front door unlocked. Eleanor entered her home calmly. She did not shout. She did not demand an apology. She walked into the foyer as if returning from an ordinary evening away. Aaron blocked the entrance to the dining room. "This is private property," he said. Margaret stepped forward. "That is correct. It is Eleanor Bennett's private property. Vanessa hurried to the office and returned with the folder from Thanksgiving dinner. She threw it onto the table and pointed to Eleanor's signature. She transferred everything. Margaret examined the first page. These documents have never been legally valid. Aaron looked at his mother. Eleanor remained silent as Margaret revealed the truth. 6 weeks earlier, Eleanor noticed that Vanessa had given her documents with missing page numbers. Instead of confronting her, Eleanor photographed the papers and took them to Margaret. One document attempted to give Aaron broad power over Eleanor's finances. Another transferred company shares. A third could be used to claim control of the house. Eleanor never signed those pages. Vanessa had copied Eleanor's signature from an old tax document. But the signature contained a tiny identification mark placed there years earlier by Robert's accountant. It proved exactly where Vanessa obtained it. Margaret opened her legal case and removed the real documents. Before Thanksgiving, Eleanor had cancelled every previous power of attorney connected to Aaron. She had placed her home and company shares inside the Bennett Legacy Trust. Eleanor was the sole trustee and beneficiary. Aaron and Vanessa had never owned anything. The power of attorney form submitted to the bank was a forgery. The supposed property transfer had never been recorded. The company transfer lacked board approval. Their plan had failed before Thanksgiving dinner even began. Aaron stared at Eleanor in disbelief. "You knew?" "I knew someone was taking money," Eleanor answered. "I wanted to believe it wasn't you." Eleanor had allowed Margaret and Nora to investigate quietly. She had hoped Aaron would stop before causing permanent damage. She never expected him to throw her out in front of the family. Vanessa accused Eleanor of trapping them. Margaret corrected her. "No one forced you to forge signatures, create false medical records, or attempt a transfer." The financial investigator placed a laptop on the table. Security footage from the dining room began playing. Aaron and Vanessa had believed the cameras were disconnected, but Robert's original system stored recordings in a separate cloud account. The footage showed Vanessa presenting the false documents. It showed Aaron taking Eleanor's phone. It showed them forcing her outside. Then Margaret played footage recorded after Eleanor left. Vanessa could be heard discussing the transfer. Aaron joked that his mother would never find an attorney on Thanksgiving night. He said Eleanor would eventually become too embarrassed to fight. Aaron lowered his head. The board chair announced that Aaron and Vanessa had been removed from every company position. Their access to the building, accounts, and records was permanently cancelled. Nora displayed the payments Vanessa had sent to false consulting businesses. Vanessa immediately blamed Aaron. He approved everything. Aaron turned toward his wife. "You said those companies were legitimate." Lily stepped into the room. Neither parent had realized she was there. She played another recording. Aaron's voice admitted that he knew at least one signature was false. Vanessa then described how they would convince the family Eleanor had forgotten signing. Aaron had known enough to understand the crime. Margaret revealed one final betrayal. The private account intended to receive the reserve money belonged only to Vanessa. She had booked a flight and planned to leave Oregon after taking the money. Aaron looked as devastated as Eleanor had looked outside in the rain. "You were leaving me." Vanessa said nothing. Eleanor watched them turn against each other. Their partnership had never been built on love or loyalty. It had been built on greed. Once the money disappeared, there was nothing holding them together. Aaron approached his mother. "Please stop this. I'm your son." Eleanor remembered him locking the front door. She remembered standing in the rain while her family watched. "You were my son when you packed my suitcase," she said. "You were my son when you took my phone. You were my son when you left me outside." Aaron began crying. Eleanor's voice remained calm. "Love does not remove consequences." Margaret placed another folder on the table. The investigation had uncovered years of false invoices and unauthorized payments. More than $300,000 had already disappeared. When the attempted transfer was included, the possible loss approached $800,000. The investigator explained that their private accounts, vehicles, and luxury apartment could be frozen. Vanessa grabbed her handbag and rushed toward the front door. A police officer stepped into the entrance. "You need to remain here," he said. Outside, the darkness was beginning to fade. Eleanor looked toward the eastern windows. Sunrise was only minutes away. At 6:42 in the morning, sunlight entered Eleanor's living room. A locksmith removed the locks Erin had installed and replaced every code connected to the house. The security company restored Eleanor as the only owner of the account. Less than 12 hours earlier, she had stood outside with one suitcase and a declined bank card. Now her name was restored to her home, company accounts, security system, vehicles, and personal savings. Erin and Vanessa were allowed to collect clothing and personal items. They could not remove furniture, company files, jewelry, or anything purchased with company money. Vanessa walked out first. She no longer appeared confident. Erin followed carrying the same suitcase that had been packed for Eleanor. He stopped near the door and looked back at his mother. Eleanor did not celebrate his pain. She simply stepped aside and allowed him to leave. The legal process continued for several months. Investigators confirmed that Vanessa created false companies and used them to steal from Bennett family foods. She also arranged the forged medical letter and signature documents. She faced serious criminal charges. Erin cooperated with investigators, but cooperation did not erase his actions. He lost his company position and surrendered assets to help repay the stolen money. The luxury apartment, expensive vehicles, and designer belongings disappeared. Eleanor refused to pay his legal bills. For the first time in his life, Erin had to face a problem his mother would not solve. Several relatives contacted Eleanor after seeing the evidence. Some apologized for believing Erin. Others apologized only because they feared losing their connection to the family company. Eleanor accepted sincere apologies, but she did not invite everyone back into her life. Silence during cruelty was still a choice. Lily moved into student housing near her college. Eleanor created a protected education fund that neither Erin nor Vanessa could access. Lily continued visiting her grandmother every weekend. Bennett family foods survived. Because the final transfer had been stopped, the company still had enough money for payroll and suppliers. Nora became the new financial director. Peter was promoted to operations manager. Independent audits were added to every department. Eleanor returned to the office, but she no longer worked every day. She created a program that helped older business owners recognize financial abuse by relatives. Margaret offered free legal workshops through the program. Months later, Eleanor received a letter from Erin. He did not ask for money. He admitted that he had spent years believing the company would automatically become his. He blamed grief, pressure, and Vanessa's influence, but he also admitted that every final choice had been his. Eleanor placed the letter inside Robert's desk. She was not ready to forgive Erin. Perhaps forgiveness would come one day. Trust would take much longer. 1 year later, Thanksgiving returned. Eleanor decorated the same dining room with candles and autumn flowers. Lily helped prepare dinner. Nora, Peter, Margaret, June from the restaurant, and several close friends joined them. The chair where Erin once sat remained empty. Eleanor did not leave it empty because she expected him to arrive. She left it as a reminder. Family was not defined only by blood. Family was defined by loyalty, respect, and the courage to stand beside someone when remaining silent would be easier. After dinner, Eleanor walked toward the front entrance. She looked through the glass at the place where she had stood in the rain 1 year earlier. That night had taken away the family she thought she had. It had also revealed the strength she had forgotten. Eleanor closed the door herself and turned the lock. This time, she was safely inside. By sunrise after the worst Thanksgiving of her life, Eleanor had reclaimed her house, company, savings, and legal power. In the months that followed, she reclaimed something even more important. She reclaimed her dignity. And no one would ever take it from her again.